Good morning, everyone. It's good to see all of you here today and to know that you're with me in this. This is the end of our exciting study of the Beatitudes. Number 8, those who are persecuted. We've come a long way in this study. In fact, it's been a very interesting one and one that has enlightened us greatly on God, what He expects, and why He said what He said, and so on. When Jesus started His ministry, first thing He did was go back and establish these set laws that had been perverted over time with lies, and He says, look, here's what's going on. Blessed is he who is, and He goes on. And every time He says blessed, meaning a great fortune is there for those who do these things. And these things were established and recorded back in the Old Testament, and yet He is repeating them again because this is the heart of God and this is the way to God. And He establishes this as truth. So let's take a look at today's Beatitude, those who are persecuted. Let's go to Matthew 5 and verse 10, and we're going to read 10, 11, and 12. Okay, here we go. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So let's talk about this and see, how is it that we're blessed, or why are we blessed? Why is this a great fortune? Well, what makes it a great fortune to be persecuted? See, that's a good question. And the reason why is because truth is always under fire. When God established the truth at the beginning of time, it was what was true. And let me rephrase it. It was what is set law. And so therefore, set law comes under fire. And what I want you to see is that there is a war between God and Satan. But remember, war is always wrong against right. The people who are right and things that are right don't have time to go out and commit war. They're doing what is right. They're busy doing good things. And those who are not busy doing good things are looking to do wrong things. In fact, Proverbs says that evil people cannot sleep unless they first go out and do some evil. So we see this thinking, this line of thinking. In fact, if you'd ever seen the movie if you ever seen this movie about this guy, man, I can't even think of the words. Equalizer, that's what it is, with Denzel Washington, and he goes and he can't sleep. Every night he can't sleep. And then once he goes and does something bad to someone, he gets a hammer and goes and gets back this jewelry and money. Once he does that, he can sleep fine. Now, I'm not saying he's evil. He was doing a good deed. But what I'm saying is who you are and what you need to do keeps you awake if you don't do it. And so the same with people who are right. They're wanting to do right all the time. They're wanting to go around doing good things and doing things for other people, but not evil. Evil wants to destroy, and you can see that in when we discussed evil and good and evil before. You know how that is. So what we see is that lies are the truth with something added or something taken away. Now let's go back and establish what we just said a few minutes ago. Truth is what God has said at creation. Truth is how we're to act and what we're to do and how we say and so on and so forth, what laws he established, etc. And let's take a look back then to see what that looks like. What do you mean that a lie is a truth with something added or taken away? Okay, look in Genesis 3 and verse 3 and 4, and let's see it shown to us in a narrative. The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die." All right, now there is established truth. So what God said was, for you to live, you don't need that tree. If you eat of it, you're going to die. Now listen to what Satan said, verse 4. "You will not surely die," the serpent said to the woman. Do you see the difference? You will die, you will not die. So all a lie is something that has been, the truth has been taken and then something added or something taken away. Somehow to make it inaccurate or to deceive or to do something where that you're believing a false statement. Now the reality was, if you eat of that fruit, you will die. What Satan said was, you will not die, and people believed it and acted upon it, and their life was changed because of it. That's very important. Why are people persecuted for following the truth? Because it is always a lie is against the truth. And lies are easier than telling what is true, because truth requires work. Let's take a look at Deuteronomy 30, verse 16 through 18. Listen to what he says. "For I command you today to love the Lord your God." All right, now, how do we love him? And we're in chapter 30, Deuteronomy, verse 16. "For I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in walk in his ways, to keep his commands, decrees, and laws. Then you will live and increase. And the Lord your God will bless you in the land you're entering to possess." Okay, here's what he says. "I command you to keep my commandments." Now, none of that is very happy. That's a lot of hard work. And if I'm going to keep these, why should I? And he says, because if you do this, then you're going to live and you're going to increase. Now, this is exactly right back at Genesis 3. If you do this, you'll live. And he's saying, here's how you do it. You work at correcting yourself and doing what is right. But lies are easier. It is always easier to have darkness than it is to have light. Light requires energy. It requires you paying for that energy in some fashion. It requires that something must be used up in order to have that energy. You have to use oil or gasoline or something to have this fire, to have the light. You have to have energy produced for electricity. When you come in the house, you can turn on the light, but you pay for that. You don't have to pay for darkness. Darkness is easy, and lies are always easier than the truth. It is always easier to ignore the truth and do what is right. Now, here we can see why we're persecuted, because truth is always under fire. From the beginning of time, as God had established the world and the laws by which we're to live, how we're to be married. I mean, look at all the different ways people say marriage is today. Where we're supposed to have sex. Look at all the different ways in which people think is right today. and how we're supposed to work to make a living. Oh my goodness, all the get rich quick schemes and all the Ponzi schemes and all the people who are out there stealing and whatever. They know it's easier just to grab something someone else has produced and turn it into money, even if they don't get as much as the one who produced it, because all they're after is the end product. They don't care how they get there. When Adam and Eve followed the lie, what they got was a distorted, painful life. Let's talk about the two responses to truth. Now, over in John 8 and chapter 41 through 44, we have an interesting little dialogue there. John 8, 41 through 44, that God gives us for us to be able to understand where we stand, who we are, when we follow a set of rules. Okay, listen. He's talking to some people there, and he says this, Jesus, you're doing things your own father does. We are not legitimate children, they protest, and our father we have is God himself. And Jesus said to them, if God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God, and now I'm here. Have you not come? I have not come on my own, but he sent me. Why is my language not clear to you? Because you're unable to hear what I say. You belong to your father, the devil, and you want to carry out your father's desires. He was a murderer from the beginning, not holding to the truth, for there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks his native language, for he is a liar and the father of lies. Okay, now, here we see two things established again. Jesus, as I said, has come back and explaining to them that there is truth and there are lies. And he's saying, if you love me, then if you know me and you know I'm from God, then you love me. But if you hate, then that is the attitude of Satan, and what you're doing is, in effect, following Satan. And you know what the feeling is when someone turns their hate on you. You know the words they use, the actions they have, that it cannot be denied who they are and what they are doing. Hate is a venomous feeling. What about love? And see, love is the attitude of God. It cannot be the same. The way that someone hates cannot be the same as the way someone loves. They are so opposite that they cannot be together. They can't be the same thing and have the same response. So when you love things, you think about love and things are sweet and you want to touch and you want to caress and things smell good and so on and so forth. So this attitude of hate or the attitude of love are two totally different things. And Jesus says here that the reason they are is because they are from different sources. The attitude of hate is from Satan, and the attitude of love is from God. So also is truth and lies. And we can see that a lie is never for you. A lie, okay, let me rephrase it. A lie is never for the other person. It is always for you. Either you want to look better in their eyes, or you don't want someone to know about something that you've done, something of that nature. But when you lie, the lie is always to make you look good and the other person look bad. Now, so we can see then why we're persecuted, because hatred and lying is a response to what is established by God, which is the truth and love. The reason why truth and love go together is if you love someone, you're going to make sure they know the truth so they can do what is right. I remember one time I was teaching some people over in camp, can't remember the name of that camp, over in La Grande and an area. And it's not Klondike. But anyway, I was teaching over there, and this woman came up to me after class. In fact, we were sitting around drinking coffee, and she said, you know, I have some friends, and I want to tell them that they're wrong. I want to tell them that God, wants them to do what's right and wants to help them and everything. But she says, I love them, and I don't want to hurt them. And I looked at her and I said, if you love them, why would you want them to continue in lives and damage their life and go to hell in the process? And she said, wow, I never thought about that. Now, look, here's what Jesus says. If you love, then you know me and you're going to follow me. If you hate, you don't know me, you can't hear me, you can't understand me, and you're going to follow Satan. So it brings up our third point. Your eternal destiny is according to your choice of masters. Now, let's go back to Deuteronomy, because here's how we're going to understand it so easily so that it can make a difference in your life. No point in discussing something if it's not going to help you change. Look what it says in verse 19, chapter 30 of Deuteronomy, verse 19. This day I call heaven and earth as witness against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live, and that you may love the Lord your God, listen to his voice, and hold fast to him. For the Lord is your life, and he will give you many years. Now listen what he's saying. He's saying, I have set this. How did he set it? When he set the laws of what is true, he set the consequences of the reward or of life or the punishment of death by following the laws or rejecting the laws. And because of this, your eternal destiny then becomes whom you're going to listen to and you're going to follow. So if you're listening to Satan, just like we saw in Genesis 3, when he said, you will not surely die, then your destiny is to be with Satan. And death, meaning separation from God forevermore. If your choice then is to follow God, then your end result, your destiny is going to be to live, because God is the source of life. Now look, here's what's going on. You're making a choice because there is no third choice. All there is God or Satan. There is no third way. The path you're going to take is your life, and you've got to live life. You don't have a choice. But the reason you're alive is because God created you in his image to do his will. When you reject that, it's treason, and it's treasonous, and there's always death for committing treason. So when he says to us in this Beatitude, blessed is he who is persecuted, what he's saying is, great fortune comes to those who follow God and love him enough to keep his commandments. What a wonderful understanding that is. And because it is that way, easily see the reward that we're going to get. And he goes on there in the Beatitudes and tells of how we're going to be people who follow other people who have followed God. Listen to what he says then again. Blessed are you when people insult you. This is Matthew 5, verse 11. Persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad. Why? Because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So now, what you know is you're getting the same reward as the prophets who were persecuted before you. So, what is this reward? What are you talking about? It's heaven. And in Revelation 21, he gives this picture of it. And in Revelation, other parts of the scriptures, he tells about heaven and so on. And he gives word pictures. It's not exactly the way it is, but we can only understand the physical, so he gives us these physical pictures. Streets of gold. I can't imagine that much gold. I don't have much gold. If I had a vault full of gold and cash and jewels and stuff like that, maybe I could understand that. But what he's saying is, here's something truly precious, and it is the streets of heaven. What you're going to be walking on are nothing but precious things. So being in heaven is precious, should be precious to us. And he talks about the city being four square, meaning that it's so right and so straight. It has this high wall, so we know good and well we're safe there, and evil cannot get in. Because the only thing that's on the outside of heaven is going to be Satan and all evil. Just like your house that you have, and you have locks on the doors, and you have windows you can shut, and you have bug spray, you can kill anything that comes in. I mean, you're set, and outside is all kinds of evil wanting to get in and take and steal. And so this picture of heaven it's strong. It cannot be destroyed. And he says, and it has a gate that swings inward. It never swings outwards. In other words, people come in, but they don't have to worry about leaving because they're never going to be kicked out. These are the pictures that we have, that we hold on to. And he says to us, blessed or good fortune comes to you who are persecuted, because this is your reward. What a beautiful picture that is. In fact, it is so beautiful, it makes life worth working for. And then the second thing we see is, not only do we get the reward of heaven, but we are in unison with the prophets of old. In fact, he tells us about that in Hebrews. Let me tell you, here is a clear example of how you're going to be persecuted when they were persecuted this way. And so you can know and not be surprised when it happens to you. We can't be surprised when evil comes against us, because that's what evil does. Now, listen to what it says. Verse 35, chapter 11, verse 35 through 38. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured and refused to be released so that they might gain better resurrection. Some faced jeers and floggings, while still others were chained and put in prison. They were stoned. They were sawed in half, in two. They were put to death by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and in holes in the ground. Let me tell you something. What a legacy we have. People who were there and suffered for God. We're destitute. We're killed. We're just horribly maimed. I can't imagine being torn in half and sawed in half and all the whippings and the things that they did. And we sit here and complain about silly little things that happen to us and say we're so persecuted because somebody said something mean to us. Come on. Don't be surprised that that's the way, because that's who they are. And don't be surprised if someone of God loves you, because that's who they are and who we should be, you and me. These are the prophets of old, and here's what he says: if you're persecuted like them, you're going to receive what they had. And you know what they had? They had the gratitude and respect of God. Did you hear that? They had the gratitude and the respect of God. You remember when Stephen was being stoned and Jesus stood for him. This is his gratitude and respect. When you sing and you sing well, and there's a standing ovation. That's gratitude and respect for what you have done. And here God is standing for what Stephen did. There's a story in Revelation 4. It's a beautiful story. And the 24 elders are circling around the throne of God. It's so great and massive. He tries to explain it, but it's impossible. In fact, he says just his train, the cape that he wears, this train that he wears, when he comes into the room, it just fills the entire room. And we just can't imagine the magnificence of God. But what he says is that God is giving each of the 24 elders a throne, a crown of gold, and saying, "You've done so well. I'm so proud of you. You've done exactly what I told you to do." And he gives them this crown, and they take the crown off their heads and they lay it down before the feet of God and says, "But God, if it weren't for you doing what was right and giving us what is true, we wouldn't be able to wear this crown." And he says, I know, but I'm so proud of you." And he picks it up and gives it back to him again. And they take it off and put it back down at his feet. And you see this beautiful picture of mutual gratitude and respect and welcoming us home to heaven, to our Father. And the reason he'll welcome us there is because we are like kind. We are just, oh, blessed are the persecuted, because they're just like God, like Christ who was killed, like the prophets of old, like any who followed the truth. How wonderful it is to be a Christian. Thank you.